Okay, so we shall continue with the chapter drugs acting on the GIT. So the first chapter which we have covered is emetics. Okay, so under that we have seen what emesis is, what are the emetic drugs, which are the different emetic drugs, how they act, and what are the contraindications. Okay, and over there we have also seen the several targets for the anti-emetic drugs. Okay, when we have seen the mechanism of emesis, we have also seen that in CTZ there are several receptors which are located, okay, which are actually stimulated when the vomiting sensation is produced. Okay, so those could be the targets for these drugs, anti-emetics. Okay, so anti-emetics, as the name implies, these are the drugs which will control the vomiting or prevent the vomiting. Basically, once vomiting is started, it is very difficult to prevent or to stop the vomiting. Okay, so severe treatment may be required. So usually these drugs are given as prophylactic treatment. Okay, that is to prevent the vomiting, okay, which may be induced due to certain situations. Okay, otherwise they may be used to control the vomiting also in severe cases. Okay, so over there we have seen that NTS and CTZ, these are the two main areas in the medulla oblongata which are relaying towards the vomiting center. So there are several receptors located over there which can be blocked to control the vomiting sensation. Okay, so with this brief introduction, we shall start with the anti-emetic drugs. So before going into the actual pharmacology, we'll see what is the outline of the chapter. So first we are going to see the definition of anti-emetic drugs, then the classification of drugs which are used as anti-emetics, and after that we shall cover the individual drugs falling under different classes. So these indicates the different classes of drugs which can be used as anti-emetics, that is anticholinergics, H1 antihistaminics, neuroleptics, prokinetic drugs, 5-HT antagonist, then the NK1 receptor antagonist, and adjuvant anti-emetics. Okay, so as you all are aware, most of these classes you all have already covered, right? So anticholinergics, so this is already covered under drugs acting on the ANS. Okay, muscarinic blockers, anticholinergic drugs or anti-muscarinic drugs, which is already covered earlier. Even H1 antihistaminics also we have covered under autocoids when we had covered histamine. Over there we have seen the antihistaminic drugs. So specifically the H1 receptor blockers are used as antiemetics. Next class, that is neuroleptics, that is antipsychotics. Antipsychotics are also known as neuroleptics. So neuroleptics, because of D2 blocking property, we have seen under neuroleptics they act by blocking the D2 receptor. That's how they produce the antipsychotic action also. By the same mechanism they can also act as anti-emetic drugs also by blocking the D2 receptors in the CTZ. Okay, this is a new class actually, prokinetic drugs, that is they increase the GI motility. We shall cover this in detail later. Then 5-HT3 antagonist, this also we have covered under serotonin, under autocoids chapter. We have seen the antagonist, okay, granisetron and all. Then this one is a new one, NK1 receptor antagonist, and certain adjuvants like BZDs, again that will be a repetition. Then certain CNS acting drugs, they are used as antiemetics. Okay, so we shall start with the chapter. First part is the definition of antiemetics. So antiemetics, these are the drugs which are used to either prevent or suppress the vomiting, as the name implies. So as the definition is as simple as that, to prevent or suppress the vomiting. Okay, either to prevent it from occurring, or if already vomiting is occurred or it already has occurred, you can also suppress it with a little bit severe treatment, or maybe parenteral treatment may be required to suppress the vomiting, because orally you cannot administer the drug, because when the person is vomiting you will not be able to administer any drug by oral route. So obviously to suppress the vomiting you may have to prefer the parenteral route. Okay, now these are the targets which I was talking about a little while earlier we have also seen all these targets under the emetics chapter. So these two, CTZ and NTS, which are located in the medulla oblongata, they have a variety of receptors like histamine H1 receptors are located, dopaminergic D2, serotonergic 5-HT3, cholinergic muscarinic receptors, the neurokinin, that is NK1 receptor, which is activated by substance P. As we have seen earlier that 5-HT is the very important mediator for provoking the emesis, but it is not the only one mediator. So likewise there are several mediators. One of them is the substance P, which acts through the NK1 receptor by stimulating the NK1 receptor. So these receptors also could be blocked to produce the antiemetic action. Even opioid mu receptors also may induce nausea and vomiting. That also we have covered under the opioid analgesics. Okay, so these serve as different targets for your antiemetics drugs. Okay, so we all are aware that by stimulating any one of these receptors, vomiting or emesis can be evoked. Okay, so by blocking any one of these receptors, the drug can produce antiemetic action. So that's why the classes are named like that. Okay, anticholinergic or serotonin antagonist, antimuscarinic, okay, NK1 receptor antagonist. So it can be clearly reflected from the targets. So coming to the classification. Yes, the first class is anticholinergics. Now not all anticholinergics are used as antiemetics. There are only two examples, that is hyoscine and dicyclomine, which can be used as antiemetics. Next class is H1 antihistaminics. Now here promethazine, diphenhydramine, dimenhydrinate, doxylamine, meclizine is also known as meclozine, and cinnarizine. These are the H1 antihistaminics which can be used as antiemetics. Then next class is neuroleptics, that is antipsychotic drugs. These are also called as D2 blockers. That's how they show their action. So examples under this include chlorpromazine, triflupromazine, prochlorperazine, haloperidol, etc. So other examples are also having antiemetic property because of their D2 blocking action. So those antipsychotics which act by blocking the D2 receptors will have antiemetic property. Okay. Next class is prokinetic drugs. Okay, so these are also known as gastric hurrying drugs which increase the GI motility. That's how they help in controlling the emesis. Okay, because we have seen that decrease in the GI motility may predispose to the emesis. That's what we have seen. It could be one of the factor. Even gastric emptying, when it is delayed, that also becomes a predisposing factor for the evoking of the nausea and vomiting. So those drugs which will increase the GI motility, or these are known as gastric hurrying drugs commonly, they increase the peristaltic action in your GIT, small intestine. So that's how they help in controlling the emesis, okay, or rather preventing the emesis. Okay, so examples under this include metoclopramide, domperidone, cisapride, mozapride and etopride. Then the fifth class is 5-HT3 antagonists. Examples include ondansetron, granisetron and pelonosetron. These also we have covered under the serotonergic drugs. Next class is NK1 receptor antagonist. Aprepitant and phosaprepitant are the two examples over here. The last class is adjuvant antihistaminics. So examples under this are dexamethasone, benzodiazepines, dronabinol and nabilol. Okay, so as the name implies, these are not first line treatment, but it can be given along with other antiemetics or when they are contraindicated. Okay, so to start with the first class, that is anticholinergic. So as the name implies and as you are already aware of, these are the drugs which will block the action of acetylcholine. Now specifically acetylcholine actions may be mediated through two types of receptors. We have seen that cholinergic receptors are divided into two types, muscarinic and nicotinic. Okay, but out of these two, muscarinic receptors are located in the CTZ. Okay, so anti-muscarinic drug, to be specific, anti-muscarinic, anticholinergic drugs are effective as antiemetic drugs. Okay, so they act by blocking the action of ACH on the autonomic effector organs and in the CNS, okay, through the CTZ maybe. By blocking the receptors, the muscarinic receptor, it will produce the antiemetic action. Okay. So to start with the individual drugs under this, hyoscine is the first example. So the dose of this drug is given 0.2 to 0.4 milligram, and it can be used by oral as well as by the IM route. Now this particular drug is the most effective drug for the motion sickness. Okay, so different terms will be used over here. Okay, as we have already seen under the emetics chapter also. There is motion sickness, morning sickness, then vomiting which is associated with the cancer chemotherapy, then post-operative nausea and vomiting. Okay, so these are the several terms which will be used over here. Now motion sickness meaning the vomiting which is associated with disturbance in the equilibrium. Basically the body equilibrium may be disrupted due to agitation, maybe when you are traveling in the guard section. Okay, so that particular nausea and vomiting which is evoked by the traveling, so that is known as motion sickness. Okay, because there is a disturbance in the equilibrium, and generally the impulses are generated from your vestibular apparatus in your ear. So from there the impulses will be sent to your vomiting center. Okay, so this hyoscine, it is the most effective drug for the motion sickness. Okay, so the ones the vomiting in which the body equilibrium is disrupted. However, the disadvantage with this drug is that the duration of action is brief. A short acting drug, this particular drug is. Okay, so it should be it can be used only for short journeys. Okay, so prolonged journeys, this particular drug may not be very effective in controlling the vomiting which is associated with the traveling. Okay, so for short journeys, hyoscine is quite commonly preferred. Okay, however, another disadvantage is that it produces sedation and other anticholinergic side effects. Okay, so since it's an anticholinergic drug, all the anticholinergic side effects pertaining to this drug, those will be precipitated, and quite common one is the sedation. Okay, so normally if you have experienced it any time, if you consume these tablets, you will feel sleepy. Okay, you have the tendency to go to sleep. Okay, because of that sedative property which it has as a side effect over here. Of course, other anticholinergic side effects also may be precipitated due to decrease in the secretory action. Okay. Now coming to the mechanism. Okay, mechanism of action is it blocks the muscarinic pathway. Okay, this cholinergic link in that pathway from your vestibular apparatus to the vomiting center, certain neurons will carry that impulse, right? Whenever there is disruption in the equilibrium, those impulses which are generated in your vestibular apparatus due to that agitation, so those will be carried by certain neurons to your vomiting center. So in that pathway is linked with this cholinergic neurons or cholinergic pathway. So that can be suppressed by hyoscine because it has anticholinergic property. Okay. Now recently, though this drug can be given by oral and in IM route, recently a transdermal patch has also been developed. It contains 1.5 milligrams of hyoscine. So once that patch is applied, okay, behind the pinna of the ear, so the drug will be released slowly over a period of time, maybe over a period of 3 days. So it will have a prolonged action. Okay, so this can be tried in those individuals maybe who have to travel constantly, or and those who suffer from this particular problem. Okay, so you need not consume the tablets again and again. So one transdermal patch would also help. So slowly the drug will be released over 3 days time. Okay, so it can effectively control the motion sickness, while only mild side effects will be produced over here, because release from the transdermal patch is also in a restricted manner. Okay, so excessive increase in the plasma concentration may not be seen. So adverse effect tendencies may be less with the use of transdermal patch. Next drug is dicyclomine. So this drug is used in a dose of 10 to 20 milligrams only by oral route, and generally this drug is used in the prophylaxis of motion sickness as well as morning sickness. Motion sickness is one which is associated with the agitation of the body, and the morning sickness is the vomiting which is associated with the pregnancy, especially in the first trimester, that is the first 3 months. The pregnant women may suffer from nausea and vomiting. Okay, so that can be controlled by dicyclomine. Okay. Then the next class is H1 antihistaminics. Okay, so antihistaminics also have anti-emetic property, because we have seen the involvement of the H1 receptor in the CT cell. Okay, so by blocking that H1 receptor, antihistaminics, H1 antihistaminics can be used as antiemetics. Okay, so specifically these drugs are used for motion sickness. To a lesser extent, for morning sickness also they may be used, but there are certain reports that it is teratogenic. It may affect the fetus. So in certain countries they have been also banned. Okay, so as far as possible, any drug should be avoided during the pregnancy. That's what we have seen. There are very few drugs which are safe during pregnancy. So generally nausea and vomiting which is associated with the pregnancy, that could be controlled by certain other measures. We will see that a little later. Okay, but antihistaminics are also effective in controlling the morning sickness, but to a lesser extent. Okay. Then mechanism of antiemetic effect is by multiple mechanisms. Okay, though they block the H1 histaminic receptors, apart from the antihistaminic property, their anticholinergic property also helps. It adds to the mechanism of antiemetic action of H1 antihistaminics. Okay, no doubt blockage of H1 receptor is the main mechanism. Apart from that, they have anticholinergic property. They also have sedative property. We have seen older agents, H1 antihistaminics, they have sedative property, which is actually a drawback, but it helps in this particular mechanism of antiemetic action. Okay. Now coming to the individual drugs, promethazine, diphenhydramine and dimenhydrinate. Now all these drugs are discussed together. Now usually we are not going to cover the detailed pharmacology because it's already covered earlier. Okay, so here the description will be pertaining only to the masses, how they are effective in that. Okay, now all these drugs, they can effectively prevent motion sickness for round about 4 to 6 hours, but they produce certain side effects, anticholinergic side effects. So sedative property, or the dryness of mouth, which is an anticholinergic side effect. So these are actually the problem or the limitation with the use of these particular drugs. Okay. Then their central anticholinergic action, it blocks the extrapyramidal side effects of metoclopramide. Now this is an added advantage with these particular agents, H1 antihistaminics. Metoclopramide, it is actually an antiemetic belonging to the prokinetic class, but this has side effects such as extrapyramidal side effects, the ones which are seen with the neuroleptics. Okay, so these extrapyramidal side effects can be effectively controlled by these drugs due to their central anticholinergic property. So that's the reason why these drugs may be combined with the metoclopramide. It may be combined, given in combination with metoclopramide in the cancer chemotherapy induced nausea and vomiting. It is known as CINV, chemotherapy induced nausea and vomiting. Okay, so chemotherapy you all have already studied about. So there also we have seen that the major limitation is nausea and vomiting. Okay, so that's a common problem with the use of cancer chemotherapy, even radiation therapy. Okay, so this can be effectively controlled by H1 antihistaminics. Okay. Then doxylamine is the next drug. Okay, so this is again a sedative H1 antihistaminic which has prominent anticholinergic activity as well. Now in India, this particular drug is combined with pyridoxine for treatment of morning sickness, that is vomiting which is associated with the early pregnancy. But in certain countries like USA, UK and some other countries, this particular drug has been banned, okay, because of the fetal malformation. But in India it is still being used during the pregnancy. Okay, but as far as possible, it is better to avoid any drug, okay, during the pregnancy. Other measures could help better, okay, rather than prescribing drugs, unless and until it is at most severe condition. Okay. Then including the kinetics properties of this particular drug, oral absorption is quite slow to occur, but the T half life is quite long. So it will act for round about or the T half life of this particular drug is 10 hours. Okay. And the side effects include drowsiness, that is sleepiness will be produced because of its sedative property. Then dryness of mouth, vertigo, that is spinning, the surrounding may be spinning. Okay, so vertigo may be precipitated, or abdominal upset, okay, that is GI problems, say constipation or diarrhea, such kind of effects may be precipitated. Usually this drug is given in a small dose as 10 to 20 milligrams at bedtime, that is at night it is given, and if the condition is severe, then additional doses may be required. Okay, because as such the drug acts for a longer period of time, because T half life itself is 10 hours. Okay, so if required in severe conditions, additional doses in the morning and afternoon may also be introduced. Next drug is meclizine, or it is also known as meclozin. This particular individual is less sedative as compared to the previous agents, and because of its long acting property, it is quite effective in the seasickness. Now, as the name implies, seasickness, that is the vomiting, nausea and vomiting which is associated with traveling through the sea. If you are traveling in a boat or a ship, some people may experience nausea and vomiting. So that is known as seasickness. So this particular drug meclizine or meclozin is quite effective in this particular condition, seasickness. So it gives protection nearly about 24 hours. So it is suitable for longer journeys. Then next drug is cinnarizine. Okay, this drug is actually used as an anti-vertigo drug. That is, vertigo meaning you have a feeling of dizziness, or the surroundings will be appearing to be spinning around. Okay, so generally there is a balance problem over here. The person may feel off balance in this particular situation. Okay, so this is used as an anti-vertigo drug, and it also has anti-emetic property. So it can be used for motion sickness also, to prevent the motion sickness which is associated with the journeys. Now mechanism over here is slightly different. Okay, so this could act by inhibiting the influx, that is inflow of calcium ions from endolymph into the vestibular sensory cells. So this is how the labyrinthine reflexes which are generated, okay, this can be suppressed. Because of inflow of this calcium ions, the labyrinthine reflexes are actually mediated or evoked, which are carried towards the vomiting center. Okay, so these, by inhibiting the influx of this calcium ions, these labyrinthine reflexes can be inhibited. Okay. Now brief discussion about the motion sickness pertaining to what kind of drugs may be used and what are the precautions which has to be taken. Okay, so the types of drugs which may be used include anticholinergic, antihistaminic drugs, which we have already seen. Okay, so most of the drugs we have seen that they are effective in motion sickness, that is associated with the disturbance in the equilibrium or the balance. Okay. Antidopaminergic, that is D2 blockers, that is neuroleptics, and anti-5-HT, that is 5-HT3 antagonists. These are quite less effective because these if you can remember the emesis mechanism, we have seen that basically the cholinergic and the histaminergic receptors are involved, or the pathways are involved. Okay, remaining mechanisms are not effectively involved in the motion sickness, that is the vestibular pathway. So that is the reason why generally anticholinergic and antihistaminic drugs are more effective in controlling the motion sickness. Antidopaminergic or 5-HT3 antagonists are less effective, okay, in controlling the motion sickness. Now, one precaution which you should take with these drugs is anti-motion sickness drugs, they have to be taken half an hour or 1 hour before the commencement of the journey. Okay, so before you start the journey, half an hour or 1 hour before that journey, you are supposed to take the tablet. Okay, otherwise once the vomiting is started, it is quite difficult to control. Okay, so anti-motion sickness, the patient should be advised to take it maybe an hour before the commencement of the journey. Okay. Next is the morning sickness. Okay. Now, morning sickness is the vomiting which is associated with the early pregnancy. Okay, and we have seen that certain antihistaminics, they are suspected to have teratogenic potential. We have seen that certain drugs are banned in other countries. Okay, so it is better to avoid any drug in the morning sickness. It can be managed by the reassurance and the dietary adjustments that can effectively control the morning sickness. And in worst to worst condition, you can preferably give drugs like dicyclomine, promethazine, prochlorperazine or metoclopramide, which are usually prescribed in lower doses and only in the severe cases. Otherwise, drugs are better to be avoided during morning sickness. Okay. And the next class is neuroleptics or the antipsychotic drugs. Okay. So we have seen over there that antipsychotic drugs, they act by blocking the D2 receptors. So with the same mechanism of action, by blocking D2 receptors in the CTZ, neuroleptics are potent anti-emetics. So they can effectively antagonize apomorphine induced vomiting. So under emetics we have seen apomorphine act by agonism at the dopaminergic receptor. They act by stimulating the D2 receptors in the CTZ. Okay, so the vomiting which is induced by apomorphine can be effectively blocked by neuroleptics. Okay. Now, apart from D2 blocking property, these agents also have anti-muscarinic property. That is, M receptor can also be blocked. H1 histaminergic receptor can also be blocked. So this could be the additional mechanisms by which it could have the anti-emetic property. Now, if you can see the anti-emetic spectrum, it is quite broad. That is, it is effective against many types of vomiting which is associated with different types of condition. Okay, so far we have discussed anticholinergics and antihistaminergic drugs. So there we have seen that specifically they are effective against motion sickness mainly or morning sickness. Okay, but here if you can see, these drugs are effective against quite a lot of types of vomiting. Okay, so the first one is drug induced and post anesthetic nausea and vomiting. Post anesthetic nausea and vomiting, it is known as PONV, is the accepted short form for that. So we have seen that certain drugs induce the vomiting, the drugs which are used in the treatment of Parkinson's disease. Okay, they act by stimulating the dopaminergic receptor. So they are quite common problem is nausea and vomiting. So likewise, there are several other drugs which induce nausea and vomiting. Even in the post anesthetic period, this is quite a common complication we have seen under the general anesthesia. Nausea and vomiting may be associated during the recovery. So these types of vomiting can be effectively controlled by neuroleptics. Okay. Next type of vomiting is the disease induced vomiting. So certain diseases may also predispose to the nausea and vomiting sensation. Okay, like gastroenteritis, uremia, liver disease, migraine and certain other disorders. They may be associated with the vomiting sensation or nausea. The person may feel nauseated. So this type of vomiting can also effectively controlled by neuroleptics. Then the next type of vomiting, that is malignancy associated or cancer chemotherapy induced vomiting, can also be controlled by neuroleptics. Next is a radiation sickness, that is when radiation treatment is given, so that may also evoke vomiting sensation. So that can also be controlled by neuroleptics, but it is less effective as compared to other drugs. Next type of vomiting is morning sickness, the one which is associated with the pregnancy. But this drug has to be used only in this condition, hyperemesis gravidarum, the condition in which there is severe nausea and vomiting. Okay, so it can be that severe that that lady may not be able to consume any food. Okay, so in such severe condition, only you are supposed to go for this drug in morning sickness, not otherwise. Okay, then neuroleptics, these are not effective or these are less effective in motion sickness, because we have seen that the pathway, okay, that vestibular pathway, it does not involve any dopaminergic link. That is the reason why neuroleptics are not effective in motion sickness. Such question could be asked as justification. Okay, neuroleptics are less effective in motion sickness. So this is the reason, because the vestibular pathway does not involve dopaminergic link, and neuroleptics basically act by blocking the D2 receptor. This could be the justification for this particular concept. Okay, that is neuroleptics are less effective in the treatment of motion sickness. So generally they are not used in motion sickness. Anticholinergics and antihistaminergic drugs are used in the treatment or the prevention of motion sickness. Okay. Then coming to the side effects tendency with these particular drugs, sedation is quite common with the use of neuroleptics. Apart from that, we have seen that the neuroleptics have extrapyramidal side effects. Acute muscle dystonia is one of them. So this could be a major limitation with this particular drug. Even after a single dose, especially in children and girls, it could precipitate acute muscle dystonia because of its D2 blocking tendency in the extrapyramidal pathway. Okay. Then one precaution which you should take over here is that these agents, that is neuroleptics or any antiemetics, they should not be administered unless and until the cause of vomiting is properly diagnosed. Okay, because if you go on suppressing the vomiting, and if it could be signaling some internal problems, like say for example intestinal obstruction may be there, appendicitis, that is inflammation of the appendix, may be seen. Okay, so these internal problems may evoke vomiting sensation or nausea may be precipitated. Okay, so if you go on suppressing this vomiting as a symptom, these conditions could worsen. So unless and until you know the cause, you are not supposed to prescribe any antiemetic to a particular person. Prochlorperazine is one of the antipsychotic or neuroleptic which is used as an antiemetic. Okay, so this is a D2 blocking phenothiazine. It belongs to the phenothiazine, which is the first class which we have covered. Okay, so it is basically a labyrinthine suppressant, has an anti-vertigo action actually. Okay, that is vertigo can be controlled, but it has an anti-emetic property also. Okay, generally it is supposed to be injected in the vertigo associated with the vomiting. Okay, or it can also be used in the chemotherapy induced nausea and vomiting. Okay, the doses which are required over here is lesser as compared to the antipsychotic doses. And these are the problems. Extrapyramidal side effects, as we have seen, muscle dystonia is a major limitation with the use of this particular drugs or any drug belonging to the neuroleptic class. We'll stop here.